The door slowly creaked open, and everyone in the room prepared themselves for a scared young girl. But what stepped inside wasn't fear. It was something far stronger. A 12-year-old girl walked forward, her eyes steady, her hands calm, carrying a silence so powerful that even the bailiff instinctively stepped back. She didn't hesitate, she didn't blink. She fixed her eyes on Judge Judy and began to speak. Not nervously, not rudely, but with a kind of truth so intense that several people in the courtroom gasped. Judge Judy paused, not out of anger, but genuine surprise. The girl wasn't questioning authority, she was revealing something deeper. In less than a minute, her words completely shifted the direction of the case. And when she stopped speaking, the room didn't just grow quiet. It seemed to tremble with the weight of what had been said. The stillness she created in that first moment hung in the air like electricity. When the moment truly settles in, the girl remains standing there, her small frame upright and composed. While the courtroom tries to understand how someone so young could command the space so completely, even Judge Judy, who has witnessed every kind of arrogance, fear, and courtroom drama, watches her with an unusual stillness. The girl doesn't shrink beneath the judge's gaze. She doesn't fidget or look at the floor as if expecting punishment. Instead, her chin lifts slightly, the kind of posture seen in children who learn to protect themselves long before anyone showed them how. A quiet, nervous breath comes from behind her. Her mother sits on the plaintiff's bench, fingers tightly intertwined, her eyes silently pleading with the girl to remain polite, maybe even quiet. But the child didn't come here to perform politeness. She came to speak. Judge Judy leans forward, resting her elbows on the bench, observing the girl with the same focus she would give a grown witness. Her voice is calm and even, but curiosity edges through it. "Young lady, tell me your name." The girl answers clearly, her voice firm enough to echo against the wooden walls of the courtroom. She doesn't rush the words or stumble over them. She says her name the way someone speaks a truth they've held inside for a long time. The atmosphere in the room shifts again, subtle but noticeable. A camera operator adjusts the focus. Someone in the audience leans closer. Even the bailiff stops pretending to be uninterested. Something about this child carries a story no one expected. Judge Judy moves forward without wasting time. "And why did you step forward today?" she asks. That is when the girl takes a breath, slow and controlled, the kind taken by someone choosing courage instead of comfort. Her eyes briefly move toward the defendant sitting across the aisle. He tries to meet her gaze, but his confidence slips slightly, like a mask that no longer fits properly. "I stepped forward because the adults keep lying." The words move across the room, soft but sharp, slicing through every carefully rehearsed version of the story. Her mother closes her eyes. The defendant shifts in his seat, his jaw tightening. Judge Judy, however, remains completely still. The girl continues speaking, not with anger, but with an honesty so raw that the room begins to feel smaller, as if her voice is drawing the walls inward. She explains that she watched two adults twist what really happened, twisting it so much that she barely recognized her own memories in their stories. She talks about hearing arguments behind closed doors, the kind that teach children things they should never have to understand. "And I'm tired," she adds softly. "I'm tired of pretending I don't know the truth." Judge Judy's eyes sharpen, not toward the girl, but toward the adults who created this moment. Her silence becomes its own kind of judgment, heavier than any spoken words. The girl holds her breath, waiting, finally waiting for someone to recognize what she has carried alone. Judge Judy slowly nods. Then she says, her voice steady like a gavel striking wood, "What exactly is this truth you're here to tell?" The girl's next words begin to tear the entire case open. She doesn't wait for the room to prepare itself. She takes a quiet breath, measured and deliberate. And when she speaks again, her voice carries the weight of someone who has held on to the truth for far too long. "It started the night they both said they were protecting me," she says. The words settle into a silence so delicate that even the ceiling lights seem to hum more softly. Judge Judy doesn't interrupt. She watches the girl the way a surgeon studies a monitor, steady, focused, waiting for the moment when the truth cuts deeper. The defendant leans forward in his chair, gripping the armrests tightly. The mother stiffens, whispering something under her breath. Prayer, perhaps, or an apology no one else can hear. But the girl continues, her eyes fixed forward, refusing to hide behind either of them. "They were arguing," she explains, "not about what happened, but about what they wanted everyone to believe happened." A ripple spreads through the audience benches as people shift in their seats, whispering quietly, realizing that this case might not be about small accusations or simple disagreements. It may be something heavier, something formed in the quiet corners of a child's world. Judge Judy nods slowly. "Go on." The girl's voice stays calm, though her hands tighten slightly at her sides. A small tremor appears for a moment, revealing the pressure beneath her composure. They talked about what they would say in court. She continues. What they wouldn't say. What they would pretend not to remember. Her eyes briefly move toward the defendant before shifting away. I heard them blaming each other, she says, but they both agreed on one thing. She pauses for a single breath. They agreed that I shouldn't talk. Judge Judy's eyebrows rise, not in surprise, but recognition. She has seen this pattern before, adults pulling at opposite ends of their own stories, while a child becomes trapped in the middle. And why? Judy asks carefully. Do you think they didn't want you to speak? The girl's voice sharpens, not with anger but clarity. Because the truth doesn't pick sides. For a moment, the courtroom forgets how to breathe. Even the defendant looks unsettled, unsure whether to respond or act as if her words carry no weight. They've been telling different stories about the same night. The girl continues. Or they think I'm just a kid who will stay confused or quiet. She shakes her head slightly. But I'm not confused, and I didn't forget. Her mother finally speaks, her voice barely louder than a whisper. Sweetheart, please. The girl doesn't turn around. It isn't rebellion, it's determination. A child who has reached the point where fear no longer controls her. Judge Judy's gaze narrows. What is the part they didn't want you to tell me? The girl swallows and lifts her chin again. The small tremor in her hands disappears, and her calm returns. That's not even the part you really need to hear, she says quietly. The atmosphere in the room tightens, as if the walls themselves have leaned closer. Judge Judy tilts her head slightly. Then what is? The girl's next words begin to unravel everything the adults tried so carefully to construct. The defendant reacts first, too quickly, too loudly. That's not true, he snaps, rising from his chair as if standing closer might somehow restore the control he just lost. She's a child. She doesn't understand what she heard. Judge Judy lifts a single hand without even turning toward him. The silence that follows isn't calm. It's a warning. Sit, she says. He lowers himself back into the chair, not out of willingness but because he knows he has no choice. The girl watches him without blinking. There's no hostility in her face, only a deep tiredness that doesn't belong in the eyes of a 12-year-old. She has seen this reaction before, adults rushing to rewrite her truth, before she can even finish telling it. Judge Judy turns back to her. Continue. The girl exhales slowly and resumes where she left off. They didn't want me to talk, she says, because if I told the truth, someone would look bad, and they both wanted the other one to look worse. Her mother covers her mouth with trembling fingers. Her eyes widen, red along the edges, silently begging the girl to stop, slow down, or soften what she's revealing. But the girl keeps looking forward, grounded by something stronger than fear. The defendant lets out a forced laugh, thin and fragile, the kind that cracks instead of convincing. You're twisting things. Kids exaggerate. This time the girl turns her head slightly toward him. Her expression doesn't change, but her voice does. It becomes colder, sharper, as if she has finally decided she won't be dismissed anymore. I'm not exaggerating, she says calmly. You are. The reaction in the courtroom is immediate. Like a sudden gust of wind moved through the room. Quiet gasps, sharp inhales, people exchanging startled glances. Even the bailiff stops mid-step, eyes narrowing as if he suddenly recognizes who the real adult in this conversation might be. The defendant opens his mouth again, ready to interrupt, but the girl gently cuts him off, softly, politely, but clearly. You told me to stay quiet today. The entire room shifts at once. Judge Judy straightens. He told you what? The defendant shakes his head quickly, raising his hands as if trying to push the words away. That never happened. She's confused. I never. She is not confused. Judge Judy cuts in sharply. The girl continues, her voice steady even though her hands begin to move nervously for the first time. He said, let me handle this. Kids mess things up when they talk. She pauses briefly. And then he said I should remember who helps me more. Her mother's eyes instantly fill with tears, guilt spreading across her face like a bruise finally exposed to light. The defendant stumbles over his words, trying to regain control. She misunderstood. The girl slowly shakes her head. I didn't misunderstand, she says quietly. I memorized it. Judge Judy exhales slowly through her nose, the sound measured and controlled, yet it fills the room with something heavier than anger. Certainty. She leans forward slightly, her eyes narrowing with the precision of someone who has finally found the first crack in the story. Did he tell you anything else not to repeat in this courtroom? The girl hesitates for a moment, not from fear, but from careful thought. Then she glances around the room in a way that sends a ripple of unease through everyone watching. Yes, she says, and you're not going to like it. The pause hangs in the air like a held breath. Judge Judy doesn't rush her. She lets the silence stretch long enough for the entire room to feel the weight of whatever truth is waiting to be spoken. Even the cameras seemed to stop their slow movements, lenses resting on the girl as if they sensed the moment about to break open. Finally, she speaks. He told me that if I said what I saw that night, he would make sure people believed I was lying. The defendant jerks upright. That is not. Stop. Judge Judy's voice cuts through the room like a blade. The mother hides her face in her hands. The tension inside the courtroom thickens, the kind of silence that feels like gravity slowly increasing. The girl continues, her voice soft but unwavering. He said kids ruin things, that adults don't get in trouble unless someone stupid talks. She swallows. And he said that if anything went wrong, it would be my fault. A chill moves through the courtroom. Several spectators shake their heads quietly. A woman in the second row presses her hand to her chest. The bailiff stiffens as if the conversation has stepped into dangerous territory. Judge Judy slowly turns her attention toward the defendant, her gaze deliberate and focused like a spotlight narrowing onto its target. You told a 12-year-old child that this situation would be her fault. He swallows hard. I was frustrated. Things were tense. She took it the wrong way. The girl finally looks directly at him. There's no anger in her face, no fear either, only truth. I took it exactly the way you said it. Judge Judy doesn't blink. And did you tell her to stay quiet in this courtroom today? He struggles for an answer. Any answer. But the words escape him like shards of broken glass. I might have told her she should let the adults talk. That's normal. It is not normal. Judge Judy replies sharply. To intimidate a child into silence so you can control the narrative. The girl takes a steady breath, then drops the detail that detonates the first major twist. You told me to say I didn't see you leave the house that night, but I did. The room halts completely. Every movement stops. Judge Judy freezes mid-breath. The mother lifts her face from her hands, eyes wide with shock and devastation. A low murmur ripples through the audience, like a quiet shockwave. The defendant's composure collapses. That's a lie. I never left. But the girl continues unshaken. You left at 90:17. You dropped something on the porch. I heard the door, and you came back 20 minutes later smelling like smoke. Judge Judy's eyes darken, sharpened by sudden clarity. She turns to the clerk. Bring me the file. Now. The clerk hurries to the back, retrieves a thick manila folder, and places it in front of the judge. She opens it slowly, deliberately, as if already anticipating what she will find. She scans the first page, then the second. Her jaw tightens. The timeline, the defendant's sworn statement, and his entire story hinge on him never leaving the house that night. And now a 12-year-old has shattered it with a single, steady sentence. Judge Judy lifts her gaze, her voice low, dangerous. Sir, you have lied to this court. But the twist is far from over. Her eyes shift back to the girl. Tell me, she says, leaning forward, what exactly did you see him drop on the porch? The question hangs in the air like an unanswered alarm. Judge Judy's eyes never leave the girl's face, calm and unblinking, while the rest of the courtroom leans forward, drawn in by an invisible thread. The girl finally answers. It was a piece of paper, she says softly, folded. I thought it was trash at first, until I saw his writing on it. A faint tremor runs through the defendant's posture. Not panic yet, but the beginning of it. His fingers twitch against the armrest, searching for something to grab onto. Judge Judy gestures for the clerk to slide the file closer. The folder lands with a weight that feels like moral gravity. She opens it again, slower this time, as if expecting the papers themselves to betray him before he speaks another word. What kind of paper, she asks. The girl swallows lightly. A note. A short one, only a few words. The mother seems to unravel from within, shoulders tight, breath uneven, eyes flickering between her daughter and the man across the aisle. The defendant forces a laugh, but it breaks midway. A note. That's ridiculous. She's making things up now. Judge Judy lifts a single finger. Do not speak. The command cuts through the air. The girl continues, her voice gaining steadiness. Picked it up fast. I only saw 3 words, but I remember them. Judge Judy leans in. Tell me. The girl closes her eyes for a single heartbeat, replaying the memory. When she opens them again, her voice carries the certainty of someone reciting what has been burned into her mind. It is done. Shock travels through the courtroom like a cold draft. A spectator gasps. Another whispers, what does that even mean? The bailiff shifts slightly, sensing a tension no one yet dares to name. Judge Judy flips through the file with surgical precision, scanning forms, receipts, and statements until she stops. Her eyes harden. She lifts a document between her fingers. This is your statement, she says to the defendant. Signed under oath. He tries to appear confident, but his breathing betrays him. Judge Judy taps the paper deliberately. You claimed you never left the house that night. He nods too quickly. Correct, because I didn't. The girl doesn't even glance at him. You did. Judge Judy lays the document flat on the desk, exposing the contradiction for all to see. And yet you left at a specific time, returned smelling like smoke, and now we have a cryptic note that reads, "It is done." She slides the file aside, her expression no longer curious, calculated. "Sir," she says slowly, "if anything in this file contradicts your sworn testimony, you are in very deep waters." The defendant swallows hard. "Your Honor, stop." The word lands heavier than a gavel strike. The girl watches silently resolute, as if she's waited years for someone to catch this lie. Judge Judy shifts her focus back to her. "When you say he smelled like smoke, what kind of smoke are we talking about?" The girl hesitates, the faintest crack in her composure appearing for the first time. When she speaks, the words drain the remaining warmth from the room. "Not cigarette smoke," she whispers. "The kind you smell when something is burning." Suddenly, the entire courtroom stops breathing. This is no longer a simple lie, it's the beginning of something far darker. The word burning spreads silently, creeping, suffocating. No one moves, not the audience, not the mother, not even the defendant, whose face drains of color so fast it seems the truth is pulling the blood from him. Judge Judy studies the girl carefully, not with suspicion, but with the kind of gravity reserved for adults who finally decide to tell the truth. "What do you mean by that?" she asks quietly. The girl clasps her hands together, steadying them. "I know the difference," she replies. "Cigarette smoke smells sharp. This didn't. It smelled burnt, like something that used to be whole and isn't anymore." A tremor runs through the mother's shoulders. She presses her knuckles to her lips, holding something inside. Fear, guilt, or the dawning realization that her daughter has carried far more truth than she ever admitted. The defendant shifts violently in his seat. "She's exaggerating. Kids don't know these things." Judge Judy doesn't even spare him a glance. "Nuff," she snaps, returning her focus to the child, gentler now. "Did you see anything else? Anything unusual? Anything he carried?" The girl pauses, not out of uncertainty, but because she is carefully choosing her next words, aware that what she says could change everything. Finally, she nods. "Yes, but I only realized it later." Judge Judy leans forward. "What was it?" The girl's voice drops almost to a whisper. "A matchbook," she says, swallowing. "He dropped it with the paper before he noticed me watching." A collective exhale sweeps through the courtroom, sharp, fearful, undeniable. The defendant closes his eyes briefly, long enough for panic to ripple through his posture. Judge Judy turns her head slowly, her gaze narrowing like a spotlight locking on its target. "Sir," she says, "you left the house, wrote a note, returned smelling like something was burning, and now she says you dropped a matchbook. Is there anything in this file that explains that?" He shakes his head too quickly. This is blown out of proportion. She's a child. She doesn't understand context. But he doesn't finish. Judge Judy has already shifted her attention, not to him, but to the small backpack resting at the girl's feet. "What's in your bag?" she asks. The child glances down, then back up, clearly startled. "Just my things." "Did you bring anything with you today that you haven't shown us yet?" Judy asks carefully. Silence falls again, deeper than before. Heavy. The kind of silence that signals something has been hidden in plain sight. The girl bends slowly, unzips her backpack, and reaches inside. Her fingers hover for a moment, tightening the suspense in the room with every breath. Then she pulls out a folded piece of paper. "This," she whispers, "is why I had to talk." Her mother gasps. The defendant stiffens. Judge Judy gestures for her to bring it forward. "Let me see that." The girl walks the paper to the bench, each step small but unwaveringly brave. She places it in Judge Judy's hand. The judge unfolds it. Her eyes widen. Her jaw tightens. For the first time in this case, Judge Judy looks shaken. Because what's written on that paper doesn't just contradict the defendant. It exposes the entire truth he has been running from. Judge Judy doesn't speak at first. She studies the unfolded paper, eyes moving deliberately across the ink, the way someone reads a confession they were never meant to see. The courtroom waits, rigid and breathless, afraid of the truth settling over them like dust. The defendant is the first to break the silence. "What is that?" he demands, voice cracking at the edges. "What is she showing you? She shouldn't even have." "Stop talking." Judge Judy snaps, her tone cold and absolute. The mother leans forward on the bench, tears falling softly this time, watching the fear she always sensed finally materialize. The girl stands perfectly still, hands clasped in front of her, gaze steady, though her breath quickens slightly. Judge Judy lifts her eyes to the defendant. "Sir, do you recognize this handwriting?" He squints, panic creeping across his features. I can't see it from here." "That is not what I asked." Judy cuts in, he swallows audibly. "It looks like mine, but that doesn't mean it's yours. You're looking at your slanted T's, your habit of pressing harder at the end of sentences." Judge Judy interrupts. tapping the bottom line with her finger. "This is your writing." The girl closes her eyes for a heartbeat, relief and fear colliding behind her lashes. The mother leans over, gripping the edge of her seat as though grounding herself. "What does it say?" she whispers. Judge Judy turns the paper so the courtroom can see it. The words are simple, blunt, devastating. "It is done." She won't talk. The room erupts, gasps, murmurs, a low hum of disbelief swelling like a storm. The defendant's face collapses, composure dissolving. Seeing his own words exposed in daylight shatters whatever fragile control he had left. That wasn't about her," he stammers. "It was about something else I was talking about." "Do not finish that sentence," Judy warns, her stare ice cold. "Do not insult this courtroom by pretending this message had any context other than silencing this child." The girl lifts her chin, meeting his eyes with a steady, heartbreaking calm. "You wrote it after telling me not to say anything. I saw you." The defendant begins to unravel in real time, breathing fast, blinking too often. Hands trembling despite his attempt to hide them beneath the table. The mother finally finds her voice, trembling but fierce. "You tried to scare her into protecting you. You tried to make her carry your lies." His expression crumples. "I didn't mean, I just didn't want things to get worse." "For who?" Judge Judy fires back. For the first time, he has no answer. Judge Judy exhales slowly through her nose, sharp and deliberate, then turns to the girl. "Is there anything else you haven't told us?" The girl hesitates, a pause, but a heavy one. Then she nods, her voice barely above a whisper, yet cutting deeper than anything before it. "Yes, there's one more thing." The room sinks into silence, bracing for the truth that will change everything. Everything in the courtroom seems to tighten, air, posture, silence. The girl's yes hangs in the space, vibrating like a struck wire. Judge Judy leans in, her focus narrowing the room around her. "What is it?" she asks, voice low, controlled, ready. The girl's eyes flick briefly to the defendant, then back to Judge Judy. For the first time, she looks unsure, not afraid, just uncertain if the truth she's about to reveal will be believed. The defendant notices the flicker of hesitation and pounces. "You don't have to say anything," he blurts. "You're confused. You've been dragged into adult matters you don't understand." "Enough." Judge Judy cuts in, sharper than a whip crack. "Do not speak another word while she is talking." But the damage is done. The girl's hands tremble, her breath catches, her body fighting the instinct he drilled into her. Silence makes adults comfortable. Judge Judy sees the internal struggle, the courage wavering, and steps in like a hand reaching through smoke. "You are safe," she says, her voice steady and warm beneath its firmness. "You will not be punished for telling the truth. Not here. Not today. Not ever." The girl closes her eyes briefly. 1 second. And when they open again, the hesitation is gone. "I wasn't holding back because I was scared," she says quietly. "I held back because I thought no one would believe a kid over him." A ripple of emotion passes through the benches. Some people look down, some look angry, but everyone feels it. A child finally dropping the weight she has carried alone. Judge Judy nods once. "I believe you." Those 3 words shift the entire balance of the room. The girl exhales slowly, a sound that feels like breaking and healing at the same time. Then she reveals the truth that flips the case upside down. "He didn't just leave the house that night," she says, her voice firm. "He went to the neighbor's shed. I followed him from the upstairs window. I saw him light something. I saw the glow. And when he came back, he was holding something." Judge Judy stiffens. What was he holding? The room seems to inhale as one. "A small metal box," the girl says. A wave of shock ripples through the courtroom. The defendant freezes, face draining, the lie collapsing beneath him like a scaffold cut loose. Judge Judy turns her full attention to him. Voice cold as winter steel. "You never mentioned a metal box. You never mentioned leaving. You never mentioned any of this." "I didn't do anything," he bursts out, the last splinter of control shattering. "Yes," the girl says softly, "you did." Judge Judy slams her gavel once, hard enough to send silence exploding outward. "This changes everything," she says. The defendant's breathing turns erratic. His palms sweat. His eyes dart to the exits as though searching for a route that no longer exists. Because the power has shifted, the girl is no longer the quiet witness. She is the key. The observer whose truth finally outweighs his lies. Judge Judy folds her hands, studying the man whose entire story just went up in flames. "Sir," she says softly, dangerously, "we are reopening this entire case from the ground up." But before she can continue, the girl lifts a hand slightly, almost apologetically. "There's something inside the box," she whispers. Judge Judy freezes. The courtroom freezes. Even the defendant stops breathing. The words, "something inside the box," settle over the room like a shadow stretching across the floor. No one speaks. Even the hum of the lights seems to dim, as if the building itself is listening. Judge Judy leans forward slowly, fingers interlacing, eyes fixed on the girl with a gentleness wrapped in steel. "Let us go step by step," she says. "Take a breath. Tell me exactly what you saw." The girl draws in air through her nose, controlled and practiced, like someone who has learned to calm herself long before this day. "When he came back from the shed," she begins, "was holding a metal box, small, dark like it used to be, shiny but got burned." A murmur ripples through the gallery. The defendant shifts violently, his composure cracking in new places. His knee bounces, breathing quickens. His eyes dart like a trapped animal. Judge Judy notices everything. "Sir," she says coolly, "you might want to regain control of yourself. You are behaving like a man who recognizes what she's describing." "I don't," he yells. "I don't know what she's talking about." But the tremor in his voice betrays him, the kind that only comes from guilt finally cornered. The mother wipes her eyes again, this time not to hide tears, but to see the truth clearly. "I should have listened to her," she whispers. "I should have asked what she saw." Her voice shakes with something deeper than grief. Regret. The girl glances toward her mother, her tone gentler now. "I didn't know if telling you would make things worse. He always said it would." Judge Judy's gaze cuts to the defendant. "You told this child that the truth would make things worse." He opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. The answer is already obvious. Everything in the courtroom tightens. The air, the silence, the weight of every gaze. Judge Judy leans in, voice low, controlled, human. "You said earlier that the adults keep lying. Tell me something. Who taught you that the truth did not matter?" The question hangs like a shadow. For the first time, the girl's face shifts. Not fear, not anger, but something older, tired, heavy. She looks down at her shoes. Her voice comes barely as a thread. "Every time they changed the story, every time they said to stay quiet, every time they pretended I didn't know what I saw." The courtroom absorbs her words like salt on a wound. Judge Judy's expression softens slightly, understanding seeping through the steel. "You deserve better than that," she says quietly. The defendant sucks in a broken, desperate breath. "She's ruining my life!" he cries. Judge Judy slams her gavel, sharp, final, silencing. "She is saving herself, sir. And the only life being ruined here is the one built on your lies." The gallery murmurs, a low current of agreement rising. The girl lifts her head, voice steadier now. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted someone to listen." Judge Judy nods slowly, voice soft but edged with truth. "I am listening." Then she turns toward the defendant, eyes narrowing. "And now it is time to listen to you answer for what she witnessed." Before he can speak, the girl interjects, fragile but brave, "There's more I haven't shown you yet." The room stiffens. Judge Judy's voice lowers, "More from that night." The girl nods. The weight of her honesty settles over the room like a storm about to break open. "Do you think remorse should ever erase guilt, or does the truth demand consequence no matter what?" Her words linger, delicate, impossible to ignore. Judge Judy watches carefully, expression neither harsh nor soft, but something in between. A stillness reserved for those who have carried too much for too long. "Take your time," Judy says. "You speak when you're ready." The girl swallows, and for the first time her voice comes thinner, edges trembling under the weight she's held back. "I didn't tell everything because I learned a long time ago that telling the truth makes things worse for kids." A quiet shock moves through the courtroom, not from surprise, but from heartbreak. The mother collapses into silent tears, nodding to herself, finally understanding the price her daughter has paid. The defendant shifts, panic now mingled with recognition. He knows how much he conditioned her silence. Judge Judy leans closer. "Who taught you that?" "Tell the court." The girl hesitates for only a moment. "You both did." The mother flinches as if struck. The defendant freezes. The girl continues, soft, steady, devastatingly clear. "Every time you two lied to each other or about each other. I saw it. You told different stories about the same things. You changed your memories when it made you look better. And every time I tried to explain what really happened, one of you would say, 'That's not what happened,' or 'Don't say that,' or 'You're confused.'" Her voice cracks. "I started believing it. I thought maybe something was wrong with me. Maybe I couldn't remember right." A spectator lets out a heavy exhale, another wipes their eyes. The tension shifts from suspicion to sorrow. "I stopped trusting myself. I stopped speaking up. And the night he left the house, I almost didn't want to believe I saw it, because if I was wrong, I'd get in trouble. And if I was right, everything would get worse." Judge Judy's voice softens but sharpens with intensity. "You are not the problem, young lady. The adults who failed you are." The defendant shakes his head rapidly. "She's twisting things she doesn't know," he protests. "Quiet." Judge Judy snaps, sharper than any blade. "You do not get to interrupt a child explaining how your actions broke her." The girl wipes a tear, not with shame, but release. I'm telling the truth now because I'm done pretending everything is fine. I'm done protecting people who never protected me." Her mother breaks into quiet sobs. Judge Judy nods once deeply. "And now," she says, voice steady as bedrock, "tell us the final thing you saw." The thing inside the metal box. The girl lifts her eyes, courage and fear mingling, making the room lean in. She opens her mouth, but no words come yet. Instead, she whispers. It wasn't something he found, it was something he kept. The courtroom goes still, bracing for the truth that will tear open the heart of the case. Judge Judy's face sharpens, not with anger but with rare protective intensity. "Something he kept," she repeats. "Go on." The girl swallows, hands twisting together, small fingers tightening as if bracing for impact. She looks at her mother for a moment, but her mother is already crying, shoulders shaking, eyes pleading. The girl looks back to Judge Judy. "It wasn't scary because of what it was," she begins. "It was scary because of who it was from." The defendant's breathing stutters. The courtroom freezes. Judge Judy doesn't blink. "Tell me," she commands. The girl inhales, gathering herself. Her voice comes out small, fragile, but unmistakably certain. The room holds its collective breath. Every eye locks on her. Every heartbeat seems to echo against the walls. Judge Judy leans in, hands folded, voice calm but sharp as a scalpel. "What is it? Tell me exactly." The girl swallows, small but steady. Her fingers twist in her lap as though holding herself together against an invisible storm. It's something he couldn't hide," she begins, voice fragile, trembling under the weight of truth. "Not something dangerous, not something scary in itself. But it was him. Everything he tried to cover, everything he wanted no one to see, it was all in that box." A ripple of tension moves through the courtroom. The defendant shifts violently, jaw tightening, hands gripping the table as if to anchor himself against the revelation. Judge Judy's eyes never leave the girl, a mixture of focus and protective intensity, as she allows the space for her truth. The girl continues, voice quivering but growing firmer. "There's a photo, one he kept hidden. It's of the three of us before everything fell apart. Mom, me and him. And the letters, they were all love letters from Mom. Letters he never gave me. Letters he hid to keep me confused, scared, to control everything, to control me." A collective exhale sweeps through the room. The mother sobs openly, collapsing into herself. The defendant's face drains further, color leaving him in waves, as though the truth is physically pulling life from him. Judge Judy's voice cuts through, steady and unwavering. "You weren't protecting your family, sir. You were controlling it. You hid the truth, you hid her voice, and now it's here." The girl wipes her tears, small hands shaking, but her eyes are fierce. "I followed him that night because I had to know. I had to remember everything. Because I thought he burned the letters, but he didn't. He hid them in the shed again. He wanted me scared. He wanted me to doubt myself." The courtroom is silent, a heavy, almost tangible weight settling over every bench. The truth has fully unspooled. The defendant slumps, not out of defiance, but a man finally cornered by the consequences of his lies. Judge Judy's gaze locks on him, steel wrapped in resolve. This case, it's no longer about what was done. It's about what was hidden. And today the truth comes forward, fully, because one child dared to speak it. The girl inhales, trembling but resolute. "There's one last thing," she whispers, voice almost breaking. "Something he thought I'd never see. Something in that box that changes everything." Every person in the courtroom leans forward, the air taut with anticipation. Even the light seems to dim, drawing the room inward, toward the small girl holding the key to a lifetime of secrets. The courtroom is suspended in a fragile silence, the weight of decades pressed into a single, trembling moment. Judge Judy lifts the handmade card carefully, letting the fragile edges speak louder than any words could. "This isn't just paper," she says softly, voice steady but heavy with the gravity of truth. "This is proof of manipulation, of a childhood commandeered by fear. A child's hope tucked into a ribbon, flattened by time, buried to hide control." The defendant's shoulders slump. His face, once so sure, now crumbles like brittle parchment. Each letter, each photo, each note in that box bears the weight of years he tried to rewrite. The girl watches him, small but fierce, as though her eyes alone could hold him accountable. Judge Judy turns to the mother, voice softening. "And you," she says, "you must see now that this was never her burden to carry alone. You allowed silence and confusion to flourish. But today begins the undoing." The mother's hands cover her mouth, sobs shaking her frame, but her eyes meet her daughter's, a silent vow to protect, to witness, to never let deceit flourish again. Judy's gaze returns to the defendant, sharper than steel. "You hoarded letters, burned bridges, and rewrote memories. And yet, here stands the child who never stopped observing, never stopped remembering, who carries the truth even when you tried to bury it. This is the final reckoning, sir. The metal box doesn't just hold evidence, it holds accountability. and justice starts here. Every person in the courtroom leans forward, breath caught, heart hammering, as the weight of the hidden letters, the photograph, and the handmade card finally lands in full force. The story he tried to control is gone. The truth, tender and devastating, is finally in the open. An accountability rise. The girl's small hand in her mother's is no longer tentative, it's steady, guided by the knowledge that her voice mattered. Judge Judy watches them leave, a quiet satisfaction in her eyes. The courtroom, once tense and fractured by lies, now carries a rare stillness, the kind that follows justice delivered, lessons learned, and truth's finally honor. The defendant remains seated a moment longer, staring at the empty space where control once lived, realizing the full weight of exposure and consequence. Silence stretches, not oppressive, but reflective, as if the room itself is processing the release of years of hidden pain. And in that silence, the lesson is clear: honesty, even when fragile and small, has the power to reshape lives. Judge Judy collects her gavel, a symbol not just of authority, but of restoration. Outside, a child and a mother step forward into a future that, for the first time in years, belongs to them.